Hello? Welcome. It's already towards the end of January, and I haven't read a single book so far. This year I haven't finished a single book. However, I have been reading fan fiction. So today, we're gonna talk about tropes. You know when someone reads a book and they review it and they say like, oh, I didn't like this book. It was just too tropey. And I'm just sitting there like, and that's a bad thing to you? There are certain tropes, okay? There are certain tropes, certain story archetypes that whenever any kind of story has this, I will go feral over that movie or book or TV series or whatever. Certain tropes, it just hits different. I have amassed a list of 30 fictional tropes, and I'm gonna rank them based on the ones that I think are bad, and especially the ones that I think are just fantastic and lovable and amazing and make me love everything. I've made the tiers as follows. All the way at the bottom we have jail time. I do not want to read these tropes. I do not want to see them. It's a personal opinion, of course. Everyone can have different ideas, but I personally think that these should be objectively eradicated from the earth. Then we have can be done well. Kind of depends on the execution of the writers, whether I like this trope or not. Then we have I eat it up every time. It's the good ones. The tier of elite tropes. If you like these tropes, you have elite taste. And if you are a piece of media that has this trope, you are an elite piece of media. The top SS tier trope, I called the girls that get it, and the girls that don't. Maybe only 3 tropes are gonna end up here. It's another plane of existence level how much I love these tropes. Okay, let's start. First one that I have here is heists. This is a super basic trope. It is incredibly overdone. There's a scene where you have like the main masterminds and then they go on their little journey to find the other characters, and if it's a movie there will be like some scene overlay like this is their name and this is their power. Man, I haven't seen you in 10 years, but I have a good job for you. Do you want to help me become a criminal? So overdone, so tropey, super basic. I love it. Then we have, I think maybe the one you all know my opinion of. It is enemies to lovers. AKA one of my favorite basic romance tropes. I like it so much that I made an entire video essay about it about a year ago. So yeah, this is definitely elite. You may have expected me to put this in the top tier, but no. It is not that. That's how special a top tier is, okay? It's a very special tier. And then we have the trope of the medieval European fantasy setting in your epic fantasy books. From all the settings you can choose to have your fantasy world take place, why on earth does every single fantasy author go for medieval Europe? Like between 1,000 to 1,500 people in Europe were just rolling around in the dirt, while there were like universities in Africa, the Middle East was flourishing, dynasties in Asia were flourishing. Anywhere else in the world would have been a more interesting choice to have your fantasy world be based on, but every single time authors choose medieval Europe. I've seen enough of it and I don't want it anymore. Then we have magical schools, the trope that I feel like is extremely overdone, yet the only example that I can think of is Harry Potter and then Morgan Crow. Stories with the magical school are kind of overdone and tend to all be kind of clones of Harry Potter, but they are always super immersive. So I'd say they can be done well. And then we have our anti-hero main character instead of our typical goody two-shoes. I love this. These are my favorite types of heroes. I am gonna put them in elite. Then we have the secret heir. It's basically when one of the main characters turns out to like secretly be an heir to the throne or some kind of have some kind of inheritance from a billionaire. Is royalty, stuff like that. It's basically that disappointing moment when you really like a character and then they turn out to be some rich royalty and you're like, oh, Guess I'll have to take out the guillotine now. Can be done well. Then we have, in romance books specifically, the alpha hero, aka like the male love interest for usually a female main character being this super dominant alpha dude bro. Basically any kind of romance book where the cover is just like a half-naked dude. So basically an extremely common romance trope, and I hate it. It's not for me. I don't want to read about male love interests growling and being possessive of our main character. If your male hero's main character trait is basically just toxic masculinity, I do not find that romantic, so no thanks. Then we have the makeover scene, like the makeover trope, which I know there's problems with it. I know that it's basically perpetuating this idea that, you know, our female main character doesn't fully come into fruition, doesn't fully reach her full potential until she has physically become attractive. But it's just so much fun. Oh man, I eat this up every time. It makes me so happy, and I know that's just like probably some kind of internalized misogyny going on there, where I still am fueled by this idea that once you are pretty and attractive to the male gaze, that's when you have reached your full girl boss potential, and that's why I like it. And I know that that's not true. We'll work on that. Then we have a trope that I kind of came up with myself. I don't know if there's like a real term for it, but it's basically when all of the main characters, like the entire main cast of characters, are like royalty or the best of the best. Like the top of society, that's just all of your main characters. Basically any kind of Sarah J Maas book does this. I find books like this very boring. I prefer reading about the underdogs. And I don't like it when all of the main characters are just these like goddesses. And then we have another trope. I called it tied up POV in my mind, which now that I think about it sounds like something else. But what I mean with it is when you have multiple POVs, multiple perspectives in your story, as most books do, but at some point in the book there's a plot twist that perfectly ties together all these POVs that previously didn't seem to be related to each other. Top tier. This is elite. The 5th season does an incredible job at perfectly tying up the POVs and making you see how they're all connected. Girl, Woman, Other also does this. Instant 4 stars at least when a book does this. Then we have a classic romance trope. There's only one bed. Oh no, we arrived at this tavern and they only have one bed. What do we do now? We don't even like each other. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna sleep next to you. I wouldn't want that. You know, like, no. Unless. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this trope is as elite as everyone makes it out to be, but I do like it. It's fun. Then we have the classic love triangle, which, I don't know, maybe a controversial opinion. I don't think love triangles are as bad as everyone makes them out to be. They can be done very well if they serve a narrative purpose of, you know, like the person in the middle of the love triangle has some decision to make in their life, and like the two love interests are like symbolize these two paths that the main character can take. It serves a purpose, and Amber in the Ashes does this really well. It's just that it has been completely butchered by really, really bad renditions in like the early young adult phase, where this trope was just badly executed so often. And I'm gonna be honest, okay, another, I don't know if I'm losing all of my credibility when I say this, I don't think the love triangle in Twilight was that bad. It was fine. Again, it was a physical manifestation of the choice Bella had to make of whether she wanted to go down the werewolf path or the vampire path. Anyway, moving on. The next one is boarding school / university settings. I don't know what it is, but I just love it when books take place in this kind of like gothic environment where all of the characters are constant, like always in the same place, like the university or the boarding school, I eat it up every time. Basically any dark academia book has this trope. Then we have forced proximity romance, which is basically when something happens, some situation where two love interests are like forced to be together. It could be a physical situation, like they get snowed in a little hut, or classic elevator scenes. Oh, the elevator stops. Oh, how awkward. What if we kissed? I personally think this trope is at its most elite when it's forced proximity through situations. For example, two, you know, enemies to lovers characters that really don't like each other. They are forced to work together as a team on some kind of quest against like an even bigger enemy, and then they're forced to work together. Like that kind of forced proximity. The best. Love it. Eat it up every time. Then we have the villain redemption arc. I wish I had more examples of this, but I can only think of Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I will never stop thinking about these kind of characters. They have to work through so much, and there's so much perfect character development in a redemption arc. I think Catra from She-Ra also has a redemption arc, and why can I only think of two examples of a villain redemption arc, or at least an antagonist redemption arc? It is just, it's always good. It's the top tier. The girls that get it. Then we have the grumpy sunshine couple, a very popular romance trope that I am personally not the biggest fan of. It's more so that when I've read it, I don't always like it. I think examples of where I really enjoyed it was Actor Age Eve Brown, and also Nick Miller and Jess in New Girl. But usually tend to not be a huge fan of this. However, I have found that if the grumpy one is a girl, and then the sunshine character is either a boy or girl, doesn't matter, but if the girl is the grumpy one, that's when it's done well. So it kind of depends. It can be done well. Then we have the opposite of the villain redemption arc, and that is the hero corruption arc. Another trope that needs to be used so much more. The only example that I can think of is Jinx from Arcane. It is elite. I want to see more heroes completely lose it, okay? I want to see them go down the path of darkness. Preferably to get together with some kind of sexy villain, but doesn't have to be, okay? I don't want to be too picky. If you have any recommendations of media with like a hero corruption arc, let me know. Then we have fake dating, a classic romance trope. It's just good. I eat it up every time. I don't care how overdone it is. It's just fun every single time. And then we have friends to lovers. I don't like this. I can be sure about it. I feel like this is one of those tropes that just like divides the internet. I don't know. It feels like you just have too much of a familial relationship when you've been friends for a long time, and it's always kind of weird to me when that changes into like a romantic thing. Haven't seen it done well yet, personally. Not my thing. Then classic speculative trope. The mentor doesn't have to be an old man, but it usually is. Or just some old person. I don't know why. Well, probably because they have more experience. Okay, that makes total sense anyway. It's great. I love it. I eat it up every time. I don't know why. What is so good about the mentor character? Maybe we all just feel like we need some guidance in life, right? Next, another romance trope, and it is mates, like fated mates. I genuinely don't understand what is the appeal of this, because it's basically like, no, we're not gonna set up that these characters are great together and have a lot of chemistry together because of who they are as people, because they just are so compatible. No, it's just because of fate. It's just because some kind of like wolfy scent, or some kind of like fae instinct. Why? it also always has like a very feral animalistic undertone that I don't really like, so chill time for that one. And then we have academic rivals to lovers. There's something about, I know I always talk about enemies to lovers and how it's like the best thing ever, but what I need to talk about more is academic rivals to lovers. I don't know what it is about this, but it hits different. And again, the girls that get it. Okay? When they're like rivals at university or rivals in like the fantasy setting, like fighting wise or magic wise or something, they're like both top of their class, top of their troop, whatever. And they hate each other because they have this rivalry going on. They're constantly trying to one-up each other. Even better if one of them is like super serious about this and the other one is kind of like laid back, kind of flirty about it. But they're always mean to each other, always bringing each other down. But then, you know, when the other character is not there and there are other people talking shit about their rival, they'll be like, no, you don't know them. That person is like the best person I know. They turn out to be like this perfect team, and they kind of realize like, oh my gosh, if we didn't like fight all the time, we could actually do so many great things if we just work together instead of antagonize each other all the time. Recommendations are the Netflix show Never Have I Ever has this, and in the Atlas 6 you have Nico and Libby, who are just the perfect execution of this kind of rivals to lovers dynamic that I just described. Oh man, it's the best. Going on to the next trope, which I named Teenage Mafia Boss, or could also be named like Teenage Billionaire, Teenage High Lord, whatever. Whenever in usually young adult book, the highest up of any kind of business or mafia thing, or like the best soldier, or like the best magician, or any kind of best highest person is a teenager. I can't read it anymore, it makes no sense. Anyway, the next one is the hero's journey, or kind of like a quest storyline where the main character like starts out, they get a quest, need to retrieve something, and then most of the book is just traveling, going on some kind of journey. Love it. Eat it up every time. Children of Blood and Bone has this. Rebel of the Sands has this. A lot of games have this. Like, one of the reasons I love all the Legend of Zelda games so much is because they're basically just, it's more about the journey than the destination. And I love that trope. Then we have found family. Ooh, beautiful. Just like a group of ragtag characters, usually underdogs, that like become friends and kind of form their own family. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender has this, most comedy shows have this, The Good Place mostly does a really good job at this, Guardians of the Galaxy. I'd say if you love the found family trope, you would love playing Stardew Valley, because it's about moving to this town and befriending all the townspeople, and they kind of become your own little found family. I'm just gonna put it, I eat it up every time. It's really good, but it's not like elite, you know? Then we have The Chosen One. I think the most classic tropes out of all of the tropes. We all know about it. I think a lot of people would say it's super overdone and shouldn't be happening anymore, but I think it can still be done very well. It's always fun to read about a normal person who turns out to be destined for greatness, so even though it's overdone, I still think it can be done very well. Then we have, oh, Amnesia. Does anyone still enjoy this? Every time I see this happening in any kind of story, it just feels like a plot device to add another season to the TV show. You know what I mean? Nuh-uh. Then we have the reluctant hero, which is the trope where the main character, the hero, doesn't want to take on the hero role. This trope has potential for me to absolutely hate it. Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman has it. I just don't like it when you as the reader want something else from the character than the character themselves. You as the reader want the main character to go do the hero thing and go on their journey, because that's why you picked up the book. So then when the hero is just constantly like, I don't want to do this, oh, I don't like this. Oh, I just want to go home. You're reading it and you're just like, just do the thing. I want to read the story. I would say it can be done well. Again, if it serves a good narrative purpose. So it can be done well, but very often I don't like it, so. Then we have, what is this picture? Oh, training montages. Also in books, just sometimes I see negative reviews of books as like, oh, like the middle dragged so much because it was just the character going through training for pages on end. And I'm like, but those are my favorite parts. I love training sequences in books and in movies, anything. I eat it up every time. And then the last one, which I think I saved it for last because I think it's my absolute favorite, most top tier fantastic trope of all time. Any type of media that has this trope, I am immediately attached to, and it is friends to enemies, or lovers to enemies, or like family to enemies, any kind of like close relationship to enemies. I don't I don't know how to explain. Again, the girls that get it. The girls that don't. But it just, oh my gosh. Examples of this would be Vicious by V. Schwab. She-Ra and the Princess of Power does this very well. In Marvel, you have Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Arcane is a good example of like sisters becoming enemies and it being super painful. And I'm currently playing Genshin Impact, which also has a lot of story to it. And there you have Kaya and Diluc, whose storyline I'm so invested in. They're also like brothers that have something that went wrong and now they're kind of antagonistic to each other. You don't know what it is and you want to find out what happened and why they're being like this and if they'll ever make up again. Top tier, absolute, the best trope on planet Earth, and I want authors to find out how good of a trope it is and then just throw it into everything, just like they do with the It's Only One Bed trope. Okay, that is my final ranking. It's gotten a little dark. Please let me know what your favorite tropes are. I think, again, you can learn a lot about a person's taste and just a person in general based on what their favorite tropes are. If you enjoyed me talking about tropes and stories and books and whatnot, and you want to see more story-related, mostly book-related content, you can subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you here. You can follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, where I usually ask things like this. For example, when I asked people to share some tropes with me for this video. I really hope that you had a good time watching this video, and I will see you soon in another one. Goodbye.